Lakers in tonight's Game 3. The Thunder, undefeated so far in this postseason, looking to take a 3-0 series lead as this second-round bout heads to the City of Angels. For more on all things NBA, let's welcome in our friend Sam Quinn. Sam, I said it, we can just keep throwing out the sports analogies here. It's do or die time for the Lakers. But the big talk coming out of that game, too, though, was, of course, the officiating. J.J. Redick had a lot to say about it after the game, but he also made sure to point out that's not why they lost. From your point of view, how is the officiating playing a role versus just how unbeatable is this Thunder team?
Yeah, we have to put this in perspective. The free throw margin in Game 2 was 5, and the Thunder won by 18. I'm sympathetic to some of these concerns about the officiating. The Thunder are almost impossible to properly officiate. There's a little bit of Seattle Seahawks Legion of Boom where it felt like, oh, they commit pass interference on every play because they know the refs can't call it. The Thunder do a little bit of that too. They play so physically, they find out where the line is, and they go right up to it every play. They're so good, they're so aggressive, they're so physical defensively that, yeah, I do see where some of the frustration comes. Maybe there should be more calls against them, but they won the game by 18. This is just a talent disparity. It's this simple. If the Lakers had Luka Doncic, I think this series would be pretty competitive. They've played fairly well, at least in the first halves of these games. But then when we get to the second half, the talent disparity comes across, and the Thunder are winning relatively easily. You know, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has 40 points in the series. He hasn't really been that stressed. When you're giving up 40 combined points to A.J. Mitchell and Jared McCain, guys who are starter quality on other teams, but are backups on this Thunder roster, it just looks like the Thunder are too deep for the Lakers. So, look, again, I am sympathetic, and there might be opponents where the margin is close enough that the officiating makes a difference. The Lakers without Luka Doncic are not there. They are just not good enough to win this series.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the injuries that the Lakers are facing. It's also the same thing for the Thunder, right? Jalen Williams is out due to that hamstring strain. The difference, though, being it doesn't seem like it's making much of a difference. So how does that affect when the Thunder decide to put him back out there, that they seem to be quite all right without him?
Yeah, I would expect that he doesn't play until the Spurs series, or if he does, they manage him very, very cautiously, maybe bring him off of the bench. A.J. Mitchell is playing so well in that starting role that, like, why bother bringing him back off the bench? The Spurs are the only team, I think, that can really stress the Thunder. They beat them 4 times in the regular season. They have a real problem with Victor Wembanyama because so much of their offense centers on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander penetrating the rim. Well, penetrating the rim against Victor Wembanyama is a different story. I think they're going to operate as if getting him ready for the Spurs series is all that matters. Without Luka, the Lakers just can't stress them enough to really force them to change their plans, right? They're up 2-0. They're in Los Angeles now for these next 2 games, but the shorthanded Lakers aren't going to challenge them enough that they have to rush Jalen Williams back. So I'm expecting them to be as cautious as possible with an eye on the Spurs series as their main plan here.
Sam, I like we're already calling it the Spurs series. Not quite there yet, but it certainly looks to be going that way. Another team's playoff hopes on the line as the Cavs are down 0-2 while the series now shifts to Cleveland. A lot, of course, has been made of James Harden's struggles. So is it just as simple as he just needs to play better, or is there maybe something the team can do to put him in a more advantageous position?
You know, I have spent years watching these James Harden playoff collapses and trying to rationalize them. Is he mentally not ready for the playoffs? Is he not physically conditioned? Is there something about his playing style that maybe doesn't translate? I've come up with all of these theories. It's so much simpler this year. He got old. It's that simple, right? I'm watching him try to score against Asar Thompson and Scotty Barnes, these younger, all-defense level players, and he just has nothing for them. And that's not even my concern because most players have nothing for those guys. It's when he's getting switches on the Duncan Robinsons and the Tobias Harrises of the world. He's not creating these huge advantages against them. He just looks old. He might not be capable of reaching star-level performance in the playoffs anymore. He might just be a regular season innings eater at this point. And if that's the case, you know, the Cavs put all of this capital into getting him. They trade Darius Garland. Donovan Mitchell seeks him out as his hand-picked co-star in the backcourt. I'm not sure they made the right choice. They traded up a decade to get him, and that decade is really, really starting to show. Again, he's had all of these playoff issues in the past. I don't even think that's the case. I just think he's old. I don't think he's athletic enough at this point for a team as physical and as big as the Pistons.
Yeah, James Harden, 36 years old, on the first year of a 2-year contract with the Cavs. So if this thing goes as quickly as it looks like it will, what does it mean for Cleveland's future?
Anything is on the table. Literally anything is on the table for them. Donovan Mitchell would be going into a contract year. If he isn't satisfied, and he was one of the driving forces behind getting James Harden, his future goes up in the air. Does he try to get somewhere specific? He wanted to be in New York when he, got traded from Utah. The Knicks no longer make sense. Is there another team out there that he'd like to play for? Evan Mobley, under more scrutiny now than he ever has been. There were all of these Giannis trade rumors. They popped back up again this week. Do the Cavs look at moving him for Giannis? Do they look at moving him for even somebody lesser than that? Like, would you maybe consider a Jaylen Brown type of trade for Evan Mobley? James Harden, he has this weird contract where he has an option for $42 million, but only $13 million of that is guaranteed. If the Cavs aren't satisfied, do they say get out of the James Harden business? Waive him, eat that $13 million. If he picks up the option, are they going to trade him as an expiring contract? I don't know that you can feel great about an extension for Harden unless he really drastically lowers the number. There's going to be all sorts of noise about LeBron James, given where the Lakers are, but I think they played well enough this postseason, and they have the home field advantage with his bird rights, that they're probably going to be able to re-sign LeBron. I'm sure the Cavs are going to take a crack at him. Literally anything's on the table at this point. They could change coaches. They could move any player. If they get swept in this series, it's DEFCON 1 for them. That's what happens when you trade a 26-year-old star for a 36-year-old star. You're all in on the present, and the present right now is not championship caliber.
We're talking about an old star in a 36-year-old James Harden, yet you're talking about potential for a 41-year-old LeBron James to come to Cleveland. Everyone's age is different. Certainly LeBron does not look to be 41 based on what we've seen in this postseason, but just a kind of funny comparison there. Let's talk about winners though, Sam. I mean, the Pistons, they've rattled off 5 straight dubs since falling to 3-1 against the Magic in the first series. From your point of view, what's clicked for this team?
Well, it helps when Tobias Harris is playing like Carmelo Anthony, right? But I'll focus on Cade Cunningham for a second. He comes into the playoffs still dealing with the lingering effects of that collapsed lung. He really struggles early in that series. He has all of these turnover issues, 24 turnovers in games 2, 3, and 4 against the Magic. Something happens after game 4. Franz Wagner gets hurt. Suddenly he feels a lot freer. The Magic don't have another high-level defender to throw at him. And the Cavs are trying with Dean Wade. Dean Wade doing an admirable job on him, but is just not a star defender. So Cade Cunningham looks a lot more comfortable, those turnover issues going away, and suddenly the entire rest of the Pistons offense really clicks. But this is something that I'm watching next round as we think they're going to wind up playing against the Knicks. OG Anunoby gave him a lot of problems in the first round last year. I believe he held him to around 33% field goal shooting in that series. So as we look forward, my question here is, can Cade Cunningham keep this up when he plays against a much better Knicks defense than he is against the Cavs defense right now that's frankly those 2 big men at the rim, Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, and not much on the perimeter?
All right, if you won't talk about Tobias Harris, I will, as the Vols fan here. He's playing fantastic, right? Averaging 23.5 points over the last 5 games, being that Robin to the Cade Cunningham Batman. Sam Quinn, as always, we appreciate your analysis of what's happening in the association. Look forward to some basketball tonight. Not just tonight, though. We got matinee hoops. Pistons at Cavs. That tip is at 3 o'clock. Cleveland, the favorite at home. And then tonight, we got Thunder, a big favorite on the road against the Lakers in Game 3.